Board meeting to order Wednesday, February the 26th. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll call the roll.
Director Adams?
Here.
Director Thomas?
I'm here.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Cicada? Yes. President Underhill?
Here. Okay, before we begin, I would just like to make a couple of comments. It was 1 week ago, my husband died, and I'm here today because my husband was extremely proud of the fact that I served on the Calaveras County Water District, and even more so this year because it was my turn to be president. And so for that reason, I decided to come, and everyone, I hope everybody knows we will have a viewing tomorrow from 1 to 7 at Angels Memorial, and then we will have a funeral mass on Friday at 10 o'clock at St. Patrick's in Angels Camp. And if you could join the family, we'd love to have you. But if, I understand that Michael pulls it pretty tough, and so you have to be at work, so that's perfectly all right. He sat very proudly back at the back of the building, of the office room, if you can remember how many times he sat there for hours.
Disrupting the meetings, I remember.
Yeah. Between he and Vicki Mills, they used to keep us going. So you all met him over the course of years, and so just want you to know that he was very proud of you all, and loved what you did, supply water. So he said all the time, there's only two things I care about. I can turn on the faucet and water comes out. I can flush the toilet and that's it. So thank you very much on behalf of Dick and the family, and we will go on.
Awesome. We're glad you're here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Amen.
Okay, we have item number 2, public comment, and we do have a public, and good morning. And we will be hearing, you're public, you're kind of public, but we'll be hearing from you a little later. Item number 3, the consent agenda. 3A, approval of committee assignments and other appointments. 3B, acceptance and transfer of Division 4 Copperopolis Saddle Creek Unit 7A subdivision. Item 3C, approval of professional services agreement for environmental services for the Ebbets Pass Reach 1 project.
Move for acceptance.
I'll second.
Okay. Call the roll.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes. Okay, we're already down to item number 4, which is our new business, and I'm just absolutely thrilled with item 4A. Presentation of rate stabilization fund refund by Robert H. Greenfield Esquire of Aqua JP Joint Powers Authority. If you'll join us at the podium, would be.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. So I just want to start with telling you about pooling, a little bit about what pooling is, because some of you, I know you're new Director Cicada, and just the way it works and why I'm here. So all of you have car insurance, correct? Mm-hmm. Right? Nobody's going to deny that in public, of course. And what you do is you pay your premium every year, and then around Christmas time, your State Farm agent will send you a Christmas card, and thank you very much, and that's about it. And you never hear from them again, and if you have a claim, your rate will go up. Well, the way pooling works is a little bit different. What happens with pooling is you are charged a deposit premium, which is what we estimate your premium to be. And then, as time passes and the policy year becomes almost closed, no more claims in that policy year, we true it up and we look at how much we spent in claims, how much excess insurance cost us, and the operating expense. And then we look at the interest that we earned, and what we look at is what were your claims and what happened at this district, at Calaveras County Water District. And as a result of that, we give you back part of your premium for a given year. And then we give it back because of the way you've operated. And it's a collaborative effort between the board, the general manager, and staff. And if anyone in that group doesn't kind of follow the rules, you all kind of lose. But in this situation, I know I've met almost all of you, and I'm very familiar with Michael and your staff because of your incredible participation in the Aqua JPIA and our programs. And in our risk management programs, I see Stacy all the time in our human resources programs. I've seen most of you on the board coming to our education programs for board members, and your participation is critical. Though I want to focus a little bit on your general manager and your staff, because every day they're out in the community, and every day they face challenges and risks arise. I mean, every time you start a district vehicle, it's an opportunity for an accident. You know, I know they don't like to think of it that way, but that's how we in the insurance side think of it. But the way management works with staff and the training and the emphasis on safety and best practices has limited your claims enormously. I mean, you're one of our shining star members. In fact, you are getting one of the largest refund checks in the entire program this year. And that's 350 members, and you are there's only one larger. So out of 350, you're number 2. And it's because of, it's because you set the policies, but it's really the day-to-day men and women who have the CCWD logo on their shirt out there in your community and promoting your mission statement, promoting your values, and being a proud representative of this organization, being safe, being courteous, and being a valuable part of the community. So, having said that, it's with incredible pleasure that I am bringing you a check for $147,000. It does not fit in the ATM. I tried.
It's a big check.
Oh.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to take a picture
yes.
with the board. Oh, okay.
Why don't we all come down here so we can stand together?
Did anybody bring a wallet big enough for that to fit? Yeah.
Yes, and he removed the reply all from the email. Yes. Right, normally I only show up with bad news.
Yeah, cover our window.
All right, here we are. 1, 2, 3. A couple more. Okay, only this one. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Really, it's a great job by everybody here. Yeah, they should have actually.
And I never mentioned our attorney. You're the only one left out.
It is.
I hope so. Okay, great.
Along with all of your loss runs and everything, and calculation of why you're getting
Perfect. Great.
$150,000.
I love it. Thank you
That's
very much.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. Damon. Everybody.
President Underhill, do you mind if I make a quick comment on that item?
Yes.
Yeah.
If I,
Oh, sure.
go ahead.
Thanks for bringing that home.
Well, I just want to say thank you for that presentation. I really feel like we have to acknowledge Damon and his staff, because while we do face, trip and fall and paper cut hazards in the office, it's really the staff in the field that are responsible for our safety record, and that starts at the top, and we've created a culture here of an emphasis on safety, and really proud of that, and thank you, Damon, for that work. It's also, I think it's always going to be a special presentation for me, because it reminds me of my first board meeting here a year ago when we got one of these checks. So I feel like it's my 1-year anniversary. We get a giant check.
So that's going to be, the checks are going to be a symbol of your success,
Let's
right?
hope. Let's hope. But yeah, so thank you very much, and thank you to the staff.
Any comments from the board?
I think it's awesome. Good job, everybody, and,
Great job.
yeah, really Damon with the staff out there in the field that has more opportunity to get into a situation. But office staff, everybody plays their part. Thank you. It's a good job.
And it's almost enough to pay for the increases in that Reach One contract.
Oh, we have to have somebody who looks at that part of it, yeah. Scott, I know you,
No, I'm good. Thank you very much, Robert, for showing up. Appreciate it. And this has a lot more to do with just the employees. And I know we're talking about workers' comp, but it's also our liability and property programs that we're involved in. And that's amazing to be number 2 in the state out of 350. We're doing something special here, and staff should be recognized.
yeah. And I think the Aqua
Should be a precedent.
JPIA newsletter would be a perfect opportunity to talk about us. And again, I say thank you. I want to say again, thank you to Damon, because you made the statement. Our employees get into the car and they turn on the car, and that's immediately an opportunity to have a problem for the day. And so,
Do we have a car
yes.
bomb problem I don't know about?
It's that reverse. The R is what causes problems.
I didn't realize that we had that.
I'll just add that number 2 is fantastic, but Damon, there is room for improvement. So
Well, I just want to say, when we get up and take our pictures there, I think it's another
Yes.
case of people who had very little to do with the subject. They get to take all the credit for it. So thank you, staff, for that. But I'd much rather see if we're going to publish a picture that we put field members
I
out there.
agree.
Thanks, y'all. I just, I think it's important to note that I push safety, and safety is at the forefront of our mind in the office. However, the guys out in the field are the ones that make it happen, and they are very safety conscious, and I think we see the benefits of that here, and so I'll continue to express our collective gratitude to them as they continue to work on all the things that they do that are inherently dangerous, and so I think it's a testament to their work. So thank you.
well,
Good job.
I'd like to say thank you for establishing the culture of safety. That's what it's all about. They know it, it's imprinted in their brains, and that's great. Thank you so much. Okay, we will now have a discussion action regarding enrollment in CalCard program for government entities. Rebecca.
Hi. Okay, so we brought this forward to the Finance Committee. I thought it was important because in going through our current credit card process, we are using just a standard business credit card for the district. And what we ran into is we needed to change who the contact person was to myself and or Michael, but because it's a business credit card, they want us to personally back the credit cards. They're not.
What's wrong with that?
Right.
It's never been a problem before. What's wrong with your credit?
Nothing with mine. I just don't want, I don't want my house on the line for what happens. So so I thought, yeah, that's true. It'll take care of it. So I thought, well, that's really odd, and they wouldn't really recognize that we are a governmental agency, and really they shouldn't be looking at us as individuals. They should be looking at us as a district and an agency and looking at our financials. And I thought it was kind of odd that we weren't participating in the CalCard program, because that really is a state program that was developed for local agencies. So it was developed for cities and counties and special districts. And so I thought it was, kind of interesting that we were going through all this hassle to establish this basically like a private corporate credit card program instead of utilizing a system that was actually created for us. And I used the CalCard program, and I was the administrator for the CalCard program at the county, and we used it very, very well. And the benefit of the CalCard program is it costs us nothing. We get a rebate. All we have to do is pay our bill on time. So, and it's just another payment method, and we're finding a lot more vendors want to be paid with credit cards instead of waiting for an accounts payable check. Or, or they might, want an ACH or EFT, but a lot more are really going to credit cards. And so, we just want to try to develop this internally. And the nice part with the CalCard program also is they already have established policies and procedures and training videos, online ability for individuals who get credit cards. So there's a lot more internal controls built in that entire process. So I think it's a great time. Staff have repeatedly come to me to say we need to do something because we're kind of getting shackled in terms of trying to buy goods for business purposes here. And I think that this is a real good opportunity for us, and it's kind of, to me, a no-brainer because we get money back. All we have to do is pay for it on time. It has better internal controls than what we currently have in our existing system. So what we have to do is you as a board have to approve our participation in this program through the actions that are laid out before you. And it takes 60 to 90 days once we submit that authorization to the state of California. And then in that period of time, we're going to be bringing forward to the Finance Committee and then the board a complete update to our credit card policy. We'll be developing and putting training programs together for any staff, and also working with management to determine who would have a credit card. And we'll have, very tight controls on that. There'll be probably more controls than what we currently have. But it will be easier to maintain, and it'll be easier to identify, who's on first and what's on second with the program.
So do we currently, every month, zero out our credit card
Yep.
balance?
Yep.
And that's a policy?
It's not a policy, but that's the practice, mainly because we don't want to pay interest. So,
Well, in this case, it's required,
Well, if you want-
it's no cost as long as we do that?
there's no cost as long as you do that. And that's the same with the current credit card. There isn't a cost to the current credit card, but you don't get a rebate either.
Just
So-
an annual expense? Or
And yeah, it's just
And-
the administrative cost of processing the credit card statement. If it gets paid late, then yes, we will pay interest, no different than if we paid this late.
Should we, do we have to change the policy to ensure that, or is practice adequate?
The practice is fine, and I think the benefit here is, you know, in order to get the rebate, you need to pay it on time and you need to pay the balance. So if you don't, then by default, you're not gonna get the rebate. So part of the benefit of this program is to pay it on time and pay your full balance.
You know, go ahead.
Have we used a visa where we accumulate points?
No.
Oh, we didn't even get points.
MSD currently uses it and has been for probably since its inception. I've been there 11 years and we've always had it. And it works really well. It's nice to get a check. We're starting to use ours more because the more you spend, the bigger rebate you get. And one time we had a fraudulent charge and they took care of it like that. There was no issues. And I think we should in the policy though, since we're gonna be redoing them, add where it's paid off in full each time.
Oh,
We
right.
don't wanna be using that as a loan of any
Yeah.
kind
I agree.
thing.
What, two questions, Rebecca. What's the interest rate if we do fail to pay full? Is
I'm not
it
sure
20%
what
or
it would
more?
be.
Probably.
Probably
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
And what is how is the rebate program set up? What is the percentage and?
It's a tiered rebate, so it depends on your volume. It depends on, it's the number of transactions, the total volume, and they look at it on a quarterly basis. So the rebate is issued on a quarterly basis.
Okay. Whatever it is, it's better than what we have
It's,
right now.
you know, even if we got $100 a year, that's $100 more than what we're getting right now.
Just on a quick basis, you said that more people would have, or I don't know, your statement about who would have the credit card. I mean, have you devised, or I'm sure Damon is coming up with a program where you will
We're-
decide who gets the card? and-
Yeah, so it's still going to, so part of this as well is also gonna impact our purchasing policy. So, you know, this is kind
Oh,
of
right.
a multi-pronged process, but part of this is identifying the changes that need to occur in our purchasing policy, because our purchasing policy was not written for any credit card use at all. Our purchasing policy is written for 100% POs. That includes $1.25. So it costs $100 to put a PO together for $1.25.
Right, right.
By the time you add all the management and all the staff and everything that has to touch it. So there's things like that that really do need to be addressed. So this is going to also impact some of the language in the purchasing policy as well. But within that, it establishes who are authorized purchasers. So we're having discussions right now in kind of policy meetings with regards to purchasing about what works here without going too far out. We want to continue to maintain internal controls, but we want to not shackle staff from getting business done.
Well, having promoted a field person into the purchasing agent position, he, again, has a, you know, in-depth knowledge of what it's taking out in the field.
Yep. So just as an example, our purchasing policy gives him no authority to purchase. So it's little things like that that we need to address, because there, you know, there are things that just need to be updated.
Oh, okay, so.
You know, I see a benefit from this, another benefit from any of the rebates we get that could be, I believe, put towards like our rate assistance program, right? Because this is not rate income.
Right.
You know, we're obviously a lot smaller than CCWD, but the 3 operators each have a card and they use it for fuel. We don't get to go to a card lock system. You have to have X amount of purchasing and fuel to get a good rate. So we get our rebate using that fuel, so that's really helpful. The other good thing is the administration would be done by, I'm assuming you. She could issue the card, she can stop the cards, she can set different limits on each card. So it really has been working well for a long time.
And you say you've used it for how long?
Oh, yeah, well, I've been there 11 years, so it was in place when I got there. And
Um,
I'm the administrator on that one, and it's
Yeah.
fairly easy.
Well, I was thinking of a question, why hadn't we used it before?
Exactly.
I don't know. We had talked to staff if they'd even heard about it, and they had not. They
Hadn't even discussed it.
Hadn't even heard about the program. So
I can't believe that.
I knew about it because of being
Of
at
the
the county.
county, right.
But I pushed out to as many special districts as we could back into when I took office back there in 2011, just to let special districts know that it's out there. They have to, they have to go to their respective boards and pass a resolution and get that all going, but it's available. And we were finding that a lot of special districts really had a limit on how, it wasn't easy for them to pay, for their goods and services. So this was an opportunity for them to find a kind of a creative way that they could self-administer and get those payments made.
Another example at MSD is we use that card for auto pay for our telephone and our PG&E, because sometimes you get that telephone bill and by the time you get it, it's due in 7 days. When you need 2 signatures on checks, the turnaround time isn't very well, so.
And
we're
we are
sure we don't
finding,
shut off.
Well,
and we are finding that as well. And so, when I'm going through the accounts payable, I'm finding a lot of those types of bills they just can't get paid on time. And so then we're getting a late fee on those.
So I'll move for acceptance.
I'll
Okay,
second.
Yeah.
and may I have a second?
I second.
Okay.
Director Reddick?
Wait, you got a public
Oh,
comment?
yeah. Any public comment? Seeing none, you may call the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada? President Underwood?
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, right back up here.
Okay, item 4C, discussion direction regarding status of board budget. Mr. Minkler.
So just a quick discussion item here. We talked to the finance committee about that, about this last week. And the direction to staff was to bring it to the full board. And the issue basically is the board has reduced its budget over time, just in an effort to save costs on travel and training and conferences and things like that. But we come up against that budget line item, and we're up against it again this year. And to have room to cover all the costs that we anticipate until the end of the fiscal year, we have the flexibility management has the flexibility to make that budget adjustment. We don't need a budget adjustment within the fund. We have that ability, but the finance committee direction was to bring it to the board for a discussion item as to whether we increase that line item or not.
Yeah.
How much do we have to increase that by? What were your projections again?
We didn't have a specific projection that we discussed at the time, but I would think putting it back to where it was would be probably more than adequate for this fiscal. But we're happy to take direction from the board on that.
Yes. Do you remember, Jeff, when we did that?
Well, I remember why we did it.
Yeah.
Wasn't it because of me?
No, we had directors that were completely abusing it, and so we tried to limit it several times. We tried to limit it to individual directors' amount, which I still think is fairly appropriate. But does this include the DC trips?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, and that's the one thing
Usually we separated that because that was a legislative, that was not personal training. This budget
Right.
should be for training and
Education.
That's a good idea.
That's right, and that's one
Education
thing we
purposes.
discussed last week was the possibility of a separate
Right.
allocation for the Legal Affairs Committee, for example, or something along
Yes.
those lines. And that's not the way it's structured right now, but that's absolutely something we could do moving.
In the past, it was like that. I mean, I'm not sure how that changed or if it. maybe it's-
So that would actually probably take care of it. If we went back and revised the budget to reallocate those costs to the general management budget somewhere, we'd have to look at where else we would draw that from, where it would be appropriate.
Is there a policy,
Use that check you have.
is our policy,
This is already spent,
our
actually.
policy used to be, if you were gonna go and I haven't read it in a long time, but it used to be that you had to make a request by the board if you were going to go do some specific training. Is that still our current policy?
I'd have to look at I don't recall if that's the current policy or not, but it's not the current practice.
Well, no, I know it's not the current practice, and the only thing I want to, I mean, you know, one director can come here and blow this whole thing out, you know, if they're given free rein, and I do think we need to, you know, set a limit, and then if somebody needs to go beyond the limit, then they can make that request to the board.
So how about this, just as a recommendation for this fiscal, we'll reallocate the costs for the legislative advocacy travel, and that should free up enough room in this year's budget without making any changes. And then we'll bring back a policy recommendation for next fiscal year and it sounds like the general consensus is caps for individual individual board members rather than the board as a whole.
You know, because if we could see the figure, if we could know the figure and know there's 5 of us, I mean,
Right.
that's simple.
You each have
That
your own
total-
budget to manage, and you
yeah.
can decide
Listen,
how you want to do it.
there's more to this, because, you know, if abuse happened in the past, there's a chance it could happen in the future, and I don't think anybody on this board is doing that, but if I'm not mistaken, there's actually a list of appropriate uses.
Oh,
of
yes,
travel
yes, there
grants.
is. Uh-huh.
You know, we had directors that were going to lectures in Berkeley and spending the night, and it had nothing to do with district work at all. You know,
There is a list, and we do compare reimbursement requests against the policy when we get those requests, and it's almost never, it hasn't been a problem in recent history at least, but I am aware of the fact that in the past there was an issue there.
Well, you know, when you're reviewing it, just take a look at it, make sure we're following the current, our current ordinance or rules, and if not, then we need to make some adjustment to the
Okay,
policy.
we'll do that,
Because-
and we'll bring a recommendation back to the finance committee with a policy that basically establishes a separate budget for each board member.
Because I think it's key, education and training and,
Oh, yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
that's
It's-
very, very
it's incredibly
important to us.
valuable, yeah.
Right, uh-huh.
If I could link this back to the previous 4B item, it seems to me that with this CalCard arrangement, that it would be appropriate particularly for the DC trips, that if a CalCard was issued to you, that you would do all the airfare, all the hotel, everything, rather than having the individual directors
Oh, yes, that's a
keep their
great,
expenses and then turn them in. I mean, it accomplishes the same thing.
And earns a rebate.
Yeah.
Well, we can take a look at how to shape that policy.
Do you need a motion?
No, I
No,
think we have direction.
just
and
direction.
We'll bring back a policy recommendation.
oh, great idea, Russ.
Rebecca, it's been a long time since I was on the board, but it seems like to me that travel was on a CalCard when I was there.
Yeah, that was the original intent of the CalCard there, was actually to facilitate travel. So there, we actually gave board members CalCards themselves.
That's okay.
I will
still-
never
I
take
s- I still have
credit
And,
card
and
anywhere.
we had board members that said, nope, don't want to touch it, don't want to deal
I'd
with
never-
it.
I'd never
I
do
would
that.
rather, yeah, and then we had, it was kind of all over the place. So some board members that didn't want to have it, some did. The ones that didn't, they just wanted to book the travel themselves, and they may or may not submit
And
the
reimburse
reimbursement.
them.
And then some, they would go through the board clerk. The board clerk would do all of the travel and training arrangements. There wasn't like an exact way it was done. It was all based on preference.
Well, if we had
Well, the idea of
flexibility.
using a Cal card for business, we
Yes,
earn that
yes.
rebate, and I think that would be a
Well, I
nice
think,
bonus
yeah,
anyway.
Michael will be looking at all the different aspects and bringing us a plan,
Yeah,
because we have to have a plan.
that's right.
Well, we do have one currently, but we just need to make sure that we're following it.
And for the most part, I do most of the booking of conferences and things like that, so that does go on the company card.
Okay, great. All right. So you'll get back to us and re-agendize and go forward. Do I ask for public comment?
Ken?
Any public comment? All right. We have no old business, and we're on to general manager report already.
just a few things to report since the last meeting. We had a camera meeting here, and we'll be bringing back an item to the board to talk about the camera budget and the use of funds going forward. So look for that probably on the next board agenda. We've had some follow-up after the meeting we had with Joaquin Escobar and Sean McGuire and East Bay Mud representatives about the voluntary settlement agreement for the McCollum. We jointly submitted a letter to those agencies, Natural Resources and the Water Board, requesting follow-up because the governor's framework for the voluntary agreements is moving forward, but sort of have left us in the dark to a certain extent to this point. And so we're requesting some follow-up meetings to see whether or not the terms that the McCollum VA submitted are still being considered, or if the state has something else in mind. We don't know. So we're following up on that. The bid opening for the Techite line will be next week, I believe it is. And we will be, whoever is the successful bidder will bring that contract back to the board, and we will encourage them to move forward as quickly as possible, as we've had a couple of line breaks and just in the last month, and it just can't wait any longer. The finance staff organized a demo with Tyler, as a company that could potentially be an alternative finance software to Springbrook, something that staff has talked about for a long time. And my understanding, I wasn't able to attend the demo, but pretty much a lot of people walked away with it with very positive feedback, and so we're still.
And what was the name of that program?
Tyler is the software.
Tyler?
Yes. So we will continue to move down that road of considering those options. We also had a meeting last week with Director Thomas and county representatives, a meeting of the members of the MOU that make up our groundwater sustainability agency. And the discussion was basically what the future of that relationship is going to look like. The current MOU was essentially designed to get us to plan approval, and now that we have plan approval, we need to take another look at the MOU and either update and draft a new revised MOU. There's discussion about a JPA rather than an MOU, different governance structures. So we're looking at all of those options, and hopefully you're happy to see the county taking a more active role in that realm. And so we'll probably be coming back to the board before long with recommendations on that front.
If I can interrupt for a second.
Yes, please.
I don't, technically, it's not an approved plan yet. We submitted a plan, but it won't be approved.
Approved by the basin,
Yeah.
right? Submitted to DUR, still waiting for DWR approval. That's right.
And I haven't mentioned this before, but the meeting that we went to last week, and the water committee for Aqua said that one plan, at least, that was submitted may take a little while to read because it has 13,000 pages.
I suspect some folks at DWR are saying that, watch what you ask for.
Yeah.
At this point.
For sure.
I don't know if is there a timeline for?
There's a 2-year timeline.
2-year timeline.
So
Okay.
it can be a long window.
And that might be ambitious.
How long is the War and Peace? That's 5
Right. And then lastly, last night, Dr. Thomas was there for this one as well, was an interesting meeting. It's the first time since I've been up here where both members of the Utica JPA, the whole boards met jointly. So the 5 directors from the UPUD and 5 council members from the city held a joint board meeting last night. And the primary focus was to receive recommendations from Dave Andrus, the current interim GM at Utica, for sort of a financial stability plan for the next few years that would provide the resources to, over those next couple of years, make some investments in capital improvements, but also invest in long-term planning, feasibility studies, and some long-term planning that is overdue there. So I think overall it was a very positive meeting. There was good discussion among the different boards, and they didn't take any action. It was a workshop, but the individual boards will go back and I think it seemed to me at least they were amenable to the recommendations that Dave Andrews put before them.
What did the recommendation look like, dollar-wise?
The main ask was a commitment from each agency to contribute a little bit more than $400,000 per year to Utica, and just to provide them with some financial certainty so that they can then go out and get some consulting agreements in place and some do some long-term planning.
How'd that go over with them when they heard that?
Yeah, I think it went pretty well. I mean, didn't come to a surprise, especially not to the members that are appointed to the Utica board. And it was, it's a tough pill to swallow for small agencies to have to do that. But the city has already implemented a rate increase to cover that. UPUD has a rate structure in place that allows them the ability to go up, increase a Utica surcharge essentially, and cover that amount, but they're also considering a separate, they have to do a rate increase on their own anyways, and so this would then get factored into that.
And it's all Prop 218 then, or
Yep.
just if they do additional rate increase?
No, either way. I think their existing rate, they don't have any scheduled regular rate increases at this point. I think they still have another year or two of that Utica surcharge that they can fluctuate, but they might package it all together in one 218 process this year or next year, it sounds like. So overall, there's a lot of questions, obviously, about the future of those agencies and what that's going to look like going forward. But I think the main response to most of those questions from Dave was we still have a lot of work to do to be able to answer that, and that's the goal, is over these next 2 years. We put in that work, we make the investment in the due diligence and then come back with some recommendations, whether it's some sort of restructuring or just a different finance model, whatever their recommendations are at the end of that 2-year period.
What's the outcome if Angels has already got supported? What's the outcome going to be if they turn down the 218?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a big hit to their budget. So it would.
What would it do to the organization? I mean, you got two different agencies. You got one that's financing, one that may not.
Yeah, I mean, they have an agreement in place that obligates both agencies to contribute 50-50. So
hopefully they do their due diligence and get out and educate people, the right way, because it's important that those groups stay together.
It is, and we did. We sort of facilitated a few years ago the Prop 218 hearing for the current rate structure that's in place, and it was mostly Utica that was at the presenting that Prop 218 at the hearing, because the rate increase was to cover those costs, and there was some opposition, and there always will be. But for the most part, once you explain, and that's where the outreach and the education becomes really critical. Once you explain the importance of those facilities to the communities and the relationships of the agencies, most people understand that the contributions are necessary.
Is there the ability to combine those two service areas for the 218 here?
It's no. They would each have to do their own 218 hearings.
Michael, are their electric sales better? The generation
That's a great segue into my next item.
Just before you go there, I want
yes.
to mention that as Dave Andrews was presenting this thing, I hadn't anticipated what the dollar amounts were going to be, but I was listening to him and reading and saying, oh my God, this is not going to go over well. But I thought it was really interesting that two of the board members wanted to approve it last night.
Yeah.
They said, well, we can't because it's not agendized, but it would have been approved last night.
I think so. And it's,
Yeah,
and it's
Utica
like I said, it wasn't.
Both.
Oh, two board members at both the Utica and the city.
No, the two, Greg and the guy that was sitting next to
Two actual UPA.
Yeah, UPA.
I mean, wouldn't they have?
No, no,
Yes,
not
they
UPA.
are both on the UPUD board,
UPUD
but they
board,
are
yeah.
appointed to the Utica board as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think for most of them, it wasn't a surprise. They knew this was coming. They knew what his recommendations were. He had presented his findings a few months back. So
Well, I'm glad Dave's there. He's very straightforward.
I couldn't agree more. It is, I mean, we're all, I think, as a community, just extremely grateful that he's there to provide, some deep expertise and the fact that he's agreed, because he wanted to be fully retired by this summer, and because of the passing
Yeah,
of
that
Steve
gets a
Shenbuck
little,
he's agreed to stay
Yeah.
on through the rest of the year.
for the
which
number
is-
of hours that he puts in, yeah. And I'm happy to hear that, we're very, we're really included in what's going on in the whole picture, because, to have Russ there, okay, representing the sustainability, and you there with your past experience, and I'm just really encouraged
Well,
that they're relying on.
Michael took the opportunity at one point to say that that CCWD and our board are very supportive and are willing to participate and be helpful, and and the objective is to make sure that quit grinning. You can't.
I didn't make any commitments, though.
That happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Let it go.
I did. As a matter of fact, I'm very proud of that.
I think that your statement about no matter what the individual boards attitudes might be, the overarching objective should be the continuation of providing water for the Highway 4 corridor.
Right, and we share that objective, so
Well, but
that was the
that
overall.
should be the new objective. The power generation should be secondary to supplying water, because if we can supply water to another mile on each side of that aqueduct, we're gonna improve our local economy,
Well,
fivefold.
to be clear, they are very clear about that. The water delivery is their number one priority, and that's why they changed the name, 2011, I think it was, and they put the W in front of it.
UWPA.
They're very clear about the fact that they are a water delivery facility, and the hydropower is incidental to their operation, only
I'm glad
their.
to hear that.
Well, Dave was very clear about, if it shows in the analysis that it's costing us more to generate power than we're making, then we ought to consider decommissioning.
That's right.
But he said that there should be an anticipation that there's huge costs associated with just shutting them down.
Right.
And he said, we might have to tear the dam down.
Right.
Yeah, so-
There's, and we don't want to get too far into the
Yeah,
weeds of that,
yeah,
or, but at this point, but I just wanted to provide that update that the meeting happened last night, and I felt like it was a very positive discussion, and that, historically, that may not have always been the case, and so it was good to see everybody sort of coming together.
Yeah.
And then on the hydropower sales front, the big concern right now, and I'm sure Randy's feeling this concern too, is the fact that we don't have enough snow. And so going into the water year for Utica is determined on the May 1st runoff projections for the Stanislaus. And unless the snowpack improves significantly between now and then, it's not going to be as good of a water year as it
We're
has
going
been.
to have the March miracle.
That's right, we are. But it would be a significant impact, because obviously less water available means less hydropower revenue. And so that's the big concern right now. The contracts haven't changed, So the Angels Powerhouse is locked into a remat contract. That's a 20-year fixed price contract. The Murphy's Powerhouse is still in a temporary or short-term contract that can be changed once remat becomes available again. And that was the next update item that I had. Was there has been a flurry of activity on that front, and it kind of stems from those of us that are still involved in that remat coalition. The frustration level is starting to reach a boiling point. I think we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Commissioner Rexstroff and staff, and a meeting last week with the new president of the PUC, her energy analyst. And it's just very clear to us that basically nothing has happened in more than a year now. The PUC committed to, or the administrative law judge that was overseeing the proceeding that was supposed to pave the way to reopening remat, committed to releasing the proposed decision in that proceeding January of 2019, and it's just been silence since then, more than a year. So we're, Assembly in Bigelow's office's staff is still very supportive. They're still very frustrated that AB 1979 has yet to be implemented. And then we're also working through other channels to try to get some more legislative pressure on the PUC to reopen remat. So, and that'll be, again, that'll be a benefit to this district, we think, at New Hogan, and also possibly for some other small hydro facilities in the county. So we're agitating on that front and trying to see if we can raise the profile of that issue, put some more pressure on the PUC to get that program reopened again. And I'll keep you posted. That's it for now.
Okay. All right, board report. Cindy?
I attended IRWM last Wednesday. It wasn't a JPA meeting, that was canceled, but we did do the Watershed Advisory Group. We had a presentation on the connection of biomass to healthy watersheds presented by CHIPS. That's the Calaveras Healthy Impact Product Solutions. Let's see, Steve Walensky, I think his name was. I'd never met him before. I know he was a supervisor. But it was a really interesting, good presentation. We also went through the DAC, the DAC assessment in our IRWM, and we had been going back and forth with getting it edited, and they finally took all the edits that we've given them, so that's a plus. And we're looking at another phase 2 of the stormwater prevention tool that was put together.
I have nothing to report.
You also have a meeting coming up on March 6th? Is that
our,
Oh, yeah.
it's called the, wait for it.
The Stanislaus River
Stanislaus
Association,
River,
yeah, kind
yeah.
of changing the name of
SRA.
the format of the Highway 4 Water Work Group. And we're changing it to a breakfast meeting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, for this one, we're still, adjusting with the format a little bit, and so this one will be breakfast, and the next host, it will probably be MSD or something, I think.
Thank you for volunteering.
You're welcome. Well, we already have the budget, so we'll see where that goes. We'll see how this one goes.
Under this new format, will there still be a prohibition about having more than 2 board members?
Unless we notice it. It would be an item that we would have to notice if we want to have more than 2 board members there, which we can do. It's not a prohibition, it just means we would have to notice it as a special meeting.
Okay. Jeff?
Only thing I have is that I'm gonna be gone from the 14th through the 19th. I don't know if we have anything scheduled, but I'll be gone.
March
Yes, March.
14th through the 19th?
Don't appoint me to anything.
Looks like you're good. We have a meeting the 11th and the 25th, so still have to go to each meeting.
So yeah, I plan my personal life around the district. Everyone knows that.
Is that why you're gone months at a time?
Okay, Russ?
The only thing that I have to report here is very significantly is March 8th is daylight savings time begins.
Woo, 1 o'clock. Why did you have to bring that up?
There is a meeting or a district or division 2 and 4, Aqua 2 and 4, Shasta tour on March 26th. That looks like it could be very interesting. You're going to go through the dam and have a presentation about how they might raise the dam to provide more water storage.
Are you planning to go?
Who?
I think I'm planning to go.
Where's it?
It's up at Shasta.
Take the RV?
There's a,
Well, maybe Fred and
I talked to Dave Egerton, and he said that there is a bus that's going to be leaving early in the morning from Sacramento. And you just take
Probably a few from Berkeley too, I'm gonna imagine.
Well, just think if it was a RV trip though, Russ.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna do an RV trip.
But I mentioned before that I went to the groundwater meeting, and it was really an interesting meeting. I have to say that there were 2 or 3 young women that are new appointees to the groundwater committee that are just
Dynamite.
unbelievably intelligent and articulate, and one of them said that it's really kind of paradoxical that these groundwater sustainability plans that everybody has come up with, they have the expectation that they're going to be able to build facilities to get their groundwater, provide for the sustainability of their groundwater levels. And they brought it up, and I never had thought about this before, but she said that everybody understands that we're not going to be able to build those things in this environment because of the CEQA challenges. And we're going to build a dam that's 10 feet high, and it'll take 25 years to get it approved. So anyway, only in California. They say you have to come up with a plan, but then
That's
the plan-
buildable.
The plan won't work. So anyway, that's all I have.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Oh, Scott.
Come on.
I could come up with something. Maybe I can talk for a little while.
He's
We
retired.
gotta close this.
Oh, he's
Don't break
retired.
the tradition now. I mean,
Okay, I'll tell you a story. No, go ahead, I got nothing.
Okay, we will start Reach 1 construction again on March the 2nd.
March 1st is the scheduled start. They're going to be doing some clearing and activities in the shoulder. March 15th, I believe, is the first day they can start traffic, 1-lane closures. And that's all subject to the weather. That's an early start approval from Caltrans that Caltrans will revoke because Miracle March is coming.
Yeah, I was thinking, how can I have all those
As
things
much
happening?
as I would like to see Reach 1 move forward as quickly as possible, I would rather see a healthy snowpack. So,
Yeah.
we'll be prepared for both.
Okay, well, that's, and so there's plenty of signage so that everybody's prepared to suffer whatever we suffer. They say no more than 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, and so I've read about
If I might, President, Under, really quickly on that, and we're off, I don't want to get too off the agenda here, but just a quick update that we had a very positive meeting with the tribe yesterday and coordinating those efforts going forward. So the goal is to have a much more cooperative effort this year and avoid the confrontations that we had last year.
And the bad press, you had to clean up your act. So.
I can't guarantee that.
Okay, I liked one of the headlines out of the Stockton Record, about our water delivery. It says, that's kind of shaky now because we don't have any snow, so that's, all plans are off because we don't. I wanted to acknowledge the general manager of NCPA. I think he snuck into the back of the room, and he doesn't want anybody to know he's here.
Well, congratulations on the promotion that Bertha just gave.
Hi, Bertha.
Hi, Randy. Okay, thank you for joining us. And that's it. Next board meetings, Wednesday, March the 4th. We will do our strategic planning. And then March the 11th. And there's this little thing that says, please note new time,
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
Which is the old time.
That's the right time.
The real time.
The real time, yeah.
And then March the 25th. So we're going into closed session to cover 3 items: existing litigation, agency negotiators, and public employee performance. And so, closed session.
Good job. An hour, 1 hour.
Oh,
That's all we're giving them. Oh, we're done already?